Breath of the Wild was a turning point for Nintendo in many more ways than one when it released more than 3 years ago. It reignited the arguably stagnant Zelda series, flipping the franchise's formulaic gameplay on its head, in turn creating a masterpiece. It also marked the start of a new era for Nintendo on the Switch, ushering a level of success not seen since the Wii craze. On top of that, Breath of the Wild continues to inspire the open-world adventure genre with its incredible game design and liberating exploration. It's no wonder Nintendo wants to capitalize on that groundbreaking title by not only making a sequel, which I am desperate to hear more news about, please, I beg you, Aonuma, but also team up with Koei Tecmo to create a prequel to Breath of the Wild. Never did I think we would get the details surrounding the Great Calamity and the destruction of Hyrule. I've dreamed of exploring the kingdom at the peak of its glory ever since I beat Breath of the Wild, but at the same time, thought that Nintendo wouldn't bother rebuilding the world just to please my foolish fantasy. And then out of nowhere, Nintendo and Koei Tecmo drop Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, a retelling of the events that took place prior to Breath of the Wild 100 years ago. If you're familiar with my channel, you might know that I made a Hyrule Warriors vs Fire Emblem Warriors comparison video a few years ago, before the Switch edition of Hyrule Warriors came out. Basically, I believed Hyrule Warriors had amazing Zelda fan service, but Fire Emblem Warriors was better gameplay-wise. With Age of Calamity, I'm expecting a mixture of the two, incredible Breath of the Wild fan service, coupled with fun, fluid gameplay. Throw in a well-written plot, and I think we could have a game worthy of being called a prequel to a masterpiece. Needless to say, I'm hyped. In order to feed my excitement, let's take our first ever Zelda deep dive, where we uncover hidden details and piece together the mystery that is Age of Calamity. I won't go over the trailer frame by frame. In fact, I've already taken care of the dirty work beforehand. That way we can get to the good stuff. A couple of warnings. If you haven't played Breath of the Wild, please stop watching now. I will be covering some major spoilers from the original game, and I don't want to spoil you from experiencing it yourself for the first time. But at the end of the day, it's your choice. Also, please understand that I made this script before the Tokyo Game Show, and if any info or theories I give becomes inaccurate, please go easy on me. I can't see the future. Now get your diving gear ready. We're going deep.
I think you are now ready. Ready to hear what happened.
As we all know by now, Age of Calamity will be a canon retelling of the events leading up to the Great Calamity, filling in the details we could only imagine before. Yes, this game is canon, even if it is Musou gameplay. No, that doesn't mean Lana and Link are canon. I'm sorry. So how far back does this prequel go? At first watch, you might think the story starts right after Calamity Ganon's return, this cutscene right here.
No, it clearly doesn't.
Well, I did, okay? Sorry for being stupid. But after looking closer, I realized the story starts a few days before the Great Calamity, before even the champions have been selected. In the trailer, we see King Rhoam addressing the Hyrule Kingdom Knights right outside the outer wall of Castletown, before the start of a large battle on Hyrule Field. Among those knights is Link, raising his sword in dedication to the kingdom. Notice how Link doesn't have his champion tunic nor the Master Sword. This means Age of Calamity starts before the earliest cutscene in the main game. In the preceding battle, Link overwhelms the enemy, making a tremendous case for MVP. For his impressive showing on the battlefield, King Rhoam appoints Link as Zelda's royal guard as she travels Hyrule, similarly to how the first Hyrule Warriors introduces Zelda and Link. Kind of a funny coincidence. That said, I might not be entirely correct on that. Thanks to the Champion's Ballad DLC and Daruk's Diary, we know that the king was impressed with Link's heroic actions when he stopped a guardian that went berserk, with only a pot lid, mind you, and saved everyone who was studying it. So that kind of already contradicts a bit of what I said. However, what if during the first battle, the Sheikah research team tries sending out a guardian to fight, but they lose control, leading to Link stopping it and saving everyone? If King Rhoam is spectating from the outer crust, he might be able to see Link save the day. Also, one minor thing about that pot lid. If Koei Tecmo and the Zelda team take Daruk's Diary seriously, and Link ends up stopping a guardian with a pot lid, that could explain why the bonus DLC for buying the digital version is a ladle and pot lid. Or it's just for laughs. Next is a scene where Zelda slowly walks down a hallway, and then steps outside as the sun lights up her face. There's not much here to exactly identify where this is, other than somewhere in the castle, but maybe this is where Zelda and Link first meet, or at least see each other. either before or after Link's heroic actions. There's also the possibility that Link takes down the Guardian on the castle grounds, with the King and Zelda watching from a safe distance. But I'm throwing ideas all over the place at this point. One more caveat before we move on. There is the possibility that the events of Link stopping the Guardian and being appointed Zelda's guard happened before the first battle we see here, since Link is a knight and has to fight in the army. But I think it would be neat to see Link show off his moves and then impress the king, leading to Zelda and Link meeting for the first time in the throne room. Speaking of the throne room, let's address the elephant in the room, shall we? How can the king be comfortable being that high up? What if he has an accident? What if he trips? He really needs to put a taller railing there or something. I'm worried about him. Calling life alert won't help you falling from that height. Slightly less important is the white-haired Sheikah kneeling next to Link. This is either a young 20-year-old Impa or an older Puda. Younger Puda? The hat on her back is strikingly similar to old lady Impa's straw hat. Strong evidence that this woman is indeed Impa. Of course, we don't know for sure what Puda looked like as an adult, so I can't be certain, but the safest bet is Impa and her straw hat. As for why Impa would be there, it probably pertains to Zelda's quest. Before the time of the Great Calamity, Impa was both royal advisor and head of Sheikah relic research. Working with Princess Zelda, Impa and her team must have discovered the divine beast and the guardians and gave the report to the king. There's also the chance that Link saved Impa from the rogue guardian and she is merely giving her testimony of his actions. After hearing Impa out, the king tasks Princess Zelda with finding new champions for the divine beasts. Another reason Impa is there could be this object right here. That's right, it's the baby. The egg. The guardian egg that we see on the box art. Clearly the egg will play some sort of role, whether as a weapon item or playable character of some sorts. If it is a playable character, perhaps Puda or even the mad Sheikah scientist Robbie could control it remotely to assist Zelda on her quest. Or maybe it's a robot they invented that acts on its own. Either way, it's a little odd that the egg is here in the throne room, but maybe it's because Impa is presenting her team's research? Or maybe the egg was the guardian that Link stopped when it went berserk. The theories fly around fast here in Ten City. You gotta be quick, you gotta keep up. Zelda, after changing to her comfy clothes, visits the 4 other tribes of Hyrule: Zorah, Ruto, Goron, and Gerudo. Not sure in what order, but we do know this assembly of champions happens before Link obtains the Master Sword. More on those individual encounters later. At some point after finding the champions, Link accepts ownership of the Master Sword, pulling it from the pedestal in the Korok Forest. Although we don't know for sure where the Master Sword's resting place was before the Great Calamity, but I like to assume its rightful place is in front of the Deku Tree and not in Hyrule Castle somewhere. That said, will we see Link pull the Master Sword? Will there be a battle before Link is able to grab it, in the vein of Hyrule Warriors? Or just a cutscene? Or maybe it will happen all off-screen, which, not gonna lie, would be disappointing. From there, the memories of the main game take place, although I doubt we'll see any of them. Probably just a short time skip with a narrator, or even a montage up until the moment Calamity Ganon returns. I mean, they might redo the scene right before its awakening just to make it flow better, but it seems more likely that they'll borrow the narrator from Hyrule Warriors. Which leads us to the Great Calamity. The champions race to their divine beasts, while Link and Zelda head to Hyrule Castle to assess the damage. Yeah, that's a lot of damage. Calamity Ganon possesses the castle, releasing its evil malice on the world. Interestingly, the pillars holding the Guardians haven't been activated in this shot, despite Zelda and Link making it back to the castle. That said, I wouldn't be surprised if Ganon activates the pillars once Zelda and Link arrive, thus making it extremely difficult to escape. There is a shot of what looks like Link and Zelda escaping Hyrule Castle through the front gates to Castletown, but of course an explosion gets in their way. Or does it help them? We can't see what shot the beam or whether it hit the gate or a target. However, the fact that Link and Zelda begin to turn around to see where the beam came from makes me wonder if it could be something benevolent. Perhaps the egg. Impa does run into Link and Zelda at some point, as we see briefly in this shot. Her white hair and hat once again give her away. If she meets them at the castle, maybe she and the egg are helping them escape. Either way, I'm confident this beam is from a guardian, whether octopus, drone, or egg. Link and Zelda do eventually escape, with or without Impa, although I'm sure Impa and Zelda meet up again at a later time. As to where Link and Zelda are going next, I bet Impa tells them to retreat to Fort Hateno, where we know Link eventually dies, or at least nearly dies, protecting Zelda. To support this, we see Link clashing the Master Sword with what looks like a Thunder Spear or a Thunder Blade. We can also see raindrops falling, even if it is a little difficult to make out.
It rains like every 5 minutes in Hyrule. What's your point?
While that is true, there's a scene in the main game during the Great Calamity where Link and Zelda are running through a forest in the middle of a rainstorm. Quite frankly, they are filthy. Appropriate for two people who are desperately trying to escape. This scene takes place in Hyrule Field, in a forest just north of the bottomless swamp. If their goal is Fort Hateno, passing through this forest is a straight path towards the mountain pass that leads to Hateno, while providing ample cover from enemies. In the meantime, the four champions return to their villages to get the Divine Beast ready. We might even get a chance to see them use the Divine Beast, at least briefly. More on that later. Unfortunately, they find that the forces of Ganon have already begun to attack cities all around Hyrule. And when Calamity Ganon summons the Guardian Pillars, perhaps that is when it takes control of the Divine Beasts as well. At this point, I hope you're ready to hurt, because the trailer shows glimpses of the champions' final moments against the Blights. Besides being the name of the hottest indie rock band in Hyrule, the Blights were born from Calamity Ganon's malice to take control of the four beasts. The trailer shows Urbosa falling to one knee in Va Naboris, with its signature electric metal wiring, Mipha in shock inside Va Ruto, Daruk using his shield to block an attack from Fire Blight Ganon, and Rivali just barely dodging a blast from Wind Blight Ganon. Needless to say, the pilots don't make it. Back to Fort Hateno. After Zelda awakens her inner power and Link is rushed to the Shrine of Resurrection, Zelda returns to Hyrule Castle to seal Calamity Ganon. It's possible Impa and even the Egg join Zelda so she can make it to the throne room safely, but there's no evidence of that in the trailer. Just my speculation. The story ends with Zelda sealing Calamity Ganon, waiting for the return of the hero. Side note, would it not be amazing to see a trailer for Breath of the Wild 2 in some way? Whether it be the cave from the teaser trailer, or Zelda asking Link how her new haircut is, to which he gives a thumbs up? I can dream, right? Now let's figure out where some of these battles take place, because shockingly, a lot of the areas featured in the Age of Calamity are nearly one-to-one with Breath of the Wild. First, let's start with what I assume will be the first battle of the main campaign, the Battle of Hyrule Field. The camera pans across the Sacred Ground ruins in front of Hyrule Castle, before they were ruins, and then zooms in on the battle. We see Link charging headfirst, racing past cannon fire, decimating enemy troops as he goes. This moment takes place south of the Sacred Ground, which we see aligns with the Breath of the Wild map. In the background, we see buildings and walls that aren't in the original, but perhaps the ruins match up? In this shot, we see two gates and a tall tower. The tall tower is southwest of the Sacred Ground, which based on the map means it could possibly be the Hyrule Garrison ruins. As for the two gates, I couldn't find any gates like these in the Breath of the Wild overworld. However, thanks to an image found on the Switch's eShop, these might be entrances to narrow paths. This shot is in the same location as the scene in the trailer, as we can see the Sacred Ground just north of here. We can also see the Sacred Ground and Link's location on the map in the lower left corner. At the bottom of the open field, there are red blocks blocking the path south and southeast. Coincidentally, the two gates match where these two blocks are on the map. If these are one and the same, I wonder if these are either controlled by enemy forces or just temporarily closed shut. We'll come back to this screenshot later on. Returning back to the trailer, in the far distance, you can see landmarks of the Great Plateau, including the Temple of Time. Although, admittedly, it is a little blurry, which makes it hard to tell if it's fully intact or not. Thankfully, there's a screenshot that gives us a better look. To me, it looks like one of the side pillars is already destroyed. Maybe Ganon's forces already took it over? Oddly enough, there's a blue pillar off to the side that looks like a shrine. How can this be here when the shrines are activated? Am I just seeing things?
Probably.
Anyway, wouldn't it be great if we could have a battle on the Great Plateau to see if the Temple of Time was destroyed or not? Well, this screenshot of battle-ready Zelda activating Magnesis could indicate just that. The remarkably tall grass and tall walls remind me of the border surrounding the north side of the plateau. However, the walls don't match that of the Great Plateau, so I'm not too confident in that theory. For all I know, this could just be an enemy keep or outside a border. But man, wouldn't it be great if we could fight on the Great Plateau? Maybe Zelda, Impa, and the Egg find the Shrine of Resurrection before the Great Calamity and have to destroy the enemy bases surrounding it in order to gain control. But that's just a dream at this point. There are a few more shots of Hyrule Field in the trailer. One of an army marching from the south towards the castle, and another of Link bombing an enemy wooden fort. To be fair, I'm not positive that this one is Hyrule Field. It could be the Great Plateau for all I know. However, we can confirm this map takes place before the Great Calamity, as long as the scene is from the main campaign. Moving on, we see Zelda and Mipha looking intently at the Sheikah Slate with bodyguard Link waiting in the background. Since he's still wearing his soldier outfit and a normal sword, this scene takes place as Zelda is finding the champions. This is most likely Zorahs Domain at night, with the bluish tinted rocks and pine trees in the back. Plus, Mipha's there, where else would she be? What I really want to know is what Zelda and Mipha are so interested in on the tablet. Fascinating. Princess, may I see what you are looking at? Oh, Mipha, go right ahead. I'm sure you'll find it enlightening as well. Yeah, that's the good stuff. Princess, is there any way I could get some copies of those? Ah, I see you're a woman of culture as well. This isn't the only Zorah Domain scene, however, as we see everyone's favorite Lionel make his surprise appearance near the city. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this Lionel is the final boss for this map. And speaking of the map, we get a look at the Zorahs Domain map in this screenshot. It's pretty identical to the whole Zorah region, if not a little smaller. In this shot, we see the player fighting as Zelda, with Link and Mipha also on the battlefield. The way this UI is set up, I think it's safe to say we'll be able to switch between the three characters freely, especially since Zelda is the second option. Another thing to note is the current mission objective: rescue the injured Zorah commanding officers. The yellow dots on the map indicate where they are at, with one already saved. Lastly, for Zorahs Domain, we see Zorah soldiers fighting back Ganon forces, just a bunch of bokoblins and moblins. While this scene happens later in the trailer, I think this cutscene will happen during Zelda and Link's first visit, since there isn't any indication Ganon is awake. And the scene happens at night, which is the same time as the previously mentioned shots. Next, we see Link in front of a cloud of powdered snow in what I believe to be the Hebra mountain range close to the Ruto village, as evident by the pine trees. Soldier Armor Link encounters Rivali, who, true to his character, flexes his inner Claude Von Regan and shows off his flashy moves. So did Rivali set off this snow bomb to make his grand entrance, or is he trying to take cover from nearby monsters? It's hard to say. We do see what could be a wooden fort beside Link here, but I can't say for sure without a better look. Either way, I think the next battle takes place here in the Hebra Mountains, and perhaps a bit of Ruto Village. A screenshot supports this claim as we see Link taking on a horde of ice enemies, ones that you would find probably in the Hebra Mountains, albeit without any snow on the ground. Fast forward a bit to Champion Daruk fighting a Hinox all by himself. Since Daruk is wearing his champion garb, we can assume the battle takes place during the Great Calamity. But where is it? Well, based on the autumn leaves in this shot, my first thought was the Akkala region, but that means it could only take place in one place. The only place in Akkala with huge stone buildings like this, the Akkala Citadel, before its destruction. I decided to compare with the main game, and while the scale is bigger in Breath of the Wild, this section of the bridge matches near perfectly with the trailer. It's honestly really cool to see how detailed the Citadel is now. I thought we would never get to see what this beautiful city looked like in its prime, but thanks to Age of Calamity, we will get that glimpse. Personal note, if I were to pick one place to live in Hyrule, it would be the Akkala Citadel, no question. Autumn all year round? A dream come true. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to figure out where this gate comes from, so I'm guessing it's like the gates in Hyrule Field. Also, do you remember the cannons from the trailer? I'm pretty certain these are Akkala Citadel cannons, as it matches well with the original version. Of course, I could be wrong, and maybe this turns out to be Hateno instead, but I'm pretty confident in Akkala. With Daruk defending the Citadel, would a potential Death Mountain map include the Akkala Citadel, or does Death Mountain have its own map? We don't have any screenshots yet to confirm either way, but this shot of Val Rudania slowly moving could be during the same mission as the Akkala scene. In the back we see a tree, which last time I checked didn't grow near Death Mountain, something about being highly flammable, I don't know. Perhaps Daruk pilots the beast to stop a river of lava flowing from Death Mountain, since we see these red sparks floating around. At the very least, we know that this is before Calamity Ganon takes control, since the lights in the Divine Beast are blue. Next, let's join Urbosa in Gerudo Town warding off a Yiga clan invasion. Since we see her champion garb, this battle probably happens after she has control over Va Naboris, although I'm hesitant to say this is happening during the Day of Calamity. It's a gorgeous sunny day when we know Ganon awakens close to when the sun sets. I guess the Great Calamity and the demise of the champions could take over a day to complete, but something tells me I'm not grasping the full picture. What could be happening is that the champions become playable once they wear the champion garb, meaning their fighting models will always have the blue cloth, no matter what. So Urbosa beating up the Yiga clan midday could be the same chapter as when Zelda eventually recruits her, which would make a lot more sense. Wow, there were a lot of mental hurdles you went through in order to get to that simple solution. I'm trying my best, okay? Not much else about the desert, although I wonder if Gerudo Town is on the same map as the Gerudo Canyon and the Kokot Plateau, because we do have screenshots of Link, Zelda, and even Mipha fighting in a canyon area that to me looks closer to Gerudo than the Tanagar Canyon in Hebra. That said, the size of that map would be enormous. Same with Death Mountain and Akala. We might have many more maps than I first thought. We'll come back to the Gerudo Canyon later, and it's Gerudo, not Gerudo. Stop with the Gerudo. Gerudo, alright? The final area I want to dive into in this section is one we see in press release screenshots. We see Zelda in her comfy pants bombing a horde of blue bokoblins. Typical Musou warfare, nothing crazy. But where in Hyrule is she? The roofs aren't blue like all the houses in Castletown, and I haven't seen houses or a fountain like this in Hateno or Kakariko. In that case, this village may not be in Breath of the Wild. Well, except for maybe the ruins. So where on the map could this be? I have a couple guesses. But first, let's return to the first battle in Age of Calamity. On the east side of the map, southeast of the Sacred Ground, we see a large oval section with a little open area above it. If we compare that to the Breath of the Wild map, we see Mabe Village and the ranch in the same spot as the large oval. You can even see the oval size of the ranch ruins on the map. However, I checked to see if there were any ruins that resembled this image, or if the landmarks matched, but no such luck. The most I could find was this well, but it's not even in the right place. That said, aside from military camps, there really aren't any other villages around Hyrule Field, the one exception being the Exchange Ruins, just below the Hyrule Garrison, which the more I look at it, the more I see it as a possibility. On top of all this, why is Zelda in her adventure outfit in Hyrule Field? If Hyrule Field is the first mission, would Zelda be there fighting? Plus, this UI screenshot only shows Link as a playable character, unlike the Zorahs Domain mission where we have 3 options. Unless Zelda joins mid-battle, the first mission should be a solo battle. Actually, I wonder if this particular scene is not in the main campaign, but free play instead. Of course, that's only if this town is in Hyrule Field. It's possible that this is a different map or maybe a different chapter. For all I know, this could be a village on the Great Plateau that was eventually destroyed. But I doubt that. Whatever this image turns out to be, I guess we have to deal with the fact that the prequel will take some creative liberties when it comes to certain landmarks. Honestly, I'm okay with that. The ruins in Breath of the Wild were kind of copy-paste at times. And now on to arguably the most important part for a Musou Warriors game, the cast and weapons. First, the future hero of Hyrule and teen heartthrob, Link. As I mentioned before, Link has at least 2 outfit changes, his soldier armor and then his champion tunic. With his soldier armor, he wields a regular sword and a knight's shield. We can also see him with a bow and bombs, although each time he has a sword sheathed on his back. With that in mind, I imagine there are either special side weapons you find on the map or a combo you activate while fighting. Of the 2, I'm leaning towards side weapons, similar to how Hyrule Warriors handled it. What's strange, however, is the complete absence of the Sheikah Slate. Granted, it's even stranger that we're using the Sheikah Slate as a weapon when the shrines haven't even been activated yet, but I digress. Age of Calamity could just gloss over this fact by saying these are just how bombs work in this version of Hyrule, or even have a Sheikah Slate user who allows characters to activate these bombs. Whatever floats your King of Red Lions, Koei Tecmo, I am not going to lose sleep over it, at the very least. What I am going to lose sleep over is this image. A Berserk Guardian attacking an armored Link in what I believe to be the Gerudo Canyon. Link should be in his champion attire for the return of Calamity Ganon, so why is this Guardian looking possessed? Like I mentioned before, it could be just an example of free play, but let's think of something a little more interesting, shall we? Remember how Link saved people from a rampaging Guardian, gaining the king's attention? What if the Sheikah were running experiments on the Guardians, and this one went berserk? To back up this theory, take a good look into the background, behind the Guardian. You'll see Hylian soldiers protecting a Sheikah woman. Ooh, that's gotta be Impa! Maybe, but would Impa really be cowering like that, especially if she turns out to be playable? No. I think this Sheikah lady is a 30-year-old or so Puda. You can barely make out her signature backpack if you squint your eyes hard enough. Granted, I could be completely off base here and it's just an NPC, or even Impa. Aside from weapons, Link can also attack enemies with a shield surfing bash, giving new meaning to the phrase, "I have the high ground." I mean, that's just radical. I really wasn't expecting to see that make a return in this Hyrule Warriors prequel. When Link does don the champion tunic, he replaces his sword and shield with the Master Sword and Hyrulean shield. Or at least, I assume so. We actually don't see Link in combat while wearing the tunic, only cutscenes. Perhaps it would be too spoilery to show us. Oh, and I guess there's the soup ladle and the pot lid.
Feel the power of soup!
It burns! It burns us! Next we have Princess Zelda, who after hearing Sakurai call her more of a researcher than a fighter, decided to prove all the haters wrong.
You go, girl!
True to her science background, Zelda doesn't use a sword or a typical weapon to fight. Instead, she utilizes the ancient ruins of the Sheikah Slate to murder her enemies. Again, why she has access to these lost ruins that weren't activated until 100 years later is beyond me. At this point, I kinda hope they don't explain it, because any explanation they give will probably make absolutely no sense canonically. Sure, Puda eventually built her own Sheikah Slate, but that was way past the Great Calamity. As far as we know, Zelda's slate was the only one of its kind at the time, but maybe Koei Tecmo will surprise us. There are 3 ruins at her disposal: Magnesis, Stasis, and Cryonis. From what we can tell in the trailer and screenshots, Magnesis uses large metal boxes to whack enemies around. Stasis freezes enemies in place. It's unclear how she damaged them while frozen. Maybe the Stasis does automatic damage to them somehow. Cryonis creates pillars of frozen water, which I'm unsure how that would help in Warriors combat, but maybe they bend the rules a little and let Zelda activate pillars whenever, since we can see ice pillars surrounding Zelda in this shot. There is one more ruin, the remote bomb, but it seems other characters like Link can use it as well. Although important to note that Link only has one bomb here, while Zelda has a whole flurry of bombs. Perhaps this barrage of bombs is exclusive to the Sheikah Slate? Then again, throwing a lot of bombs at once was in Hyrule Warriors as well, so we'll see. Speaking of the Sheikah Slate, when Link is taken to the Shrine of Resurrection, the Sheikah Slate needs to be there as well, probably to activate it and eventually allow Link to use it. This means Zelda won't have it for her battle with Calamity Ganon, unless there happens to be another one, which I doubt. What if Zelda instead uses her Awakened Goddess powers to battle her way through Hyrule Castle and seal the evil beast? It would make for an epic final battle, assuming the game's final battle is Zelda versus Calamity Ganon. I don't have any proof we'll see Zelda fight in her white clothes and activate her goddess powers, but I think it would be a cool way to end the game. Moving on to the champions. First, Mipha and her light scale trident. Along with throwing down her mighty trident, Mipha will also use water, as shown in the trailer against what I assume to be another Berserk Guardian. By the way, this Guardian is missing a couple legs. Either that means the more damage it takes, the less legs it has, or this Guardian and Link's Guardian here are the same, since this one also seems to be missing some legs. I could see it going either way. Revali doesn't get much screen time in combat, but we do see him take down a horde of black bokoblins somewhere close to his home, into the Bantha frontier. Like the other champions, he has his champion garb around his neck, which wasn't there when he snuck behind Link earlier in the trailer. Revali uses his Great Eagle Bow from the original game, firing an onslaught of arrows at his enemies. Interestingly, he fires regular arrows and finishes with bomb arrows. This could imply he has a plethora of arrows at his disposal, such as fire, ice, and shock arrows. Daruk we only see fighting here in Akkala during what I assume is the Great Calamity. But of course, I could be wrong, and this takes place when he first becomes champion. Anyway, Daruk has his boulder breaker, but instead of breaking boulders, we see him making them? Or at least summoning earth pillars and exploding them to damage this Hinox. You can also see some magma veins inside of the rocks, inspired by the lava of Death Mountain. The final champion, Urbosa, is only seen fighting in Gerudo Town against the Yiga clan. Wielding her Scimitar of the Seven and Daybreaker shield, Urbosa executes a perfect dodge on the Yiga attack, activating Flurry Rush. I'm sure this means any character can use Flurry Rush if they have a perfect dodge, although I wouldn't be surprised if there was some kind of limit to it. As for her attacks, I'm sure she'll use a mixture of her sword swings and her lightning ability. Those are the main fighters we know for sure so far. However, there is at least one more fighter that we know is coming but haven't seen in action, the Egg. With the Egg being featured front and center in the box art, there's no way this Egg won't play a big role combat-wise. I'm picturing the Egg spinning around like a top, moving at high speeds, firing lasers everywhere. Could be a blast to play.
Oh, excellent pun.
Likewise. I've also thought of the possibility the Egg is actually just a weapon instead of a fighter, similar to the spinner in Hyrule Warriors. But I think it would be more exciting if the Egg was its own fighter. Unfortunately, we don't ever see the Egg in combat, so I guess I can't say for sure when it will fight. At least I'm confident it's not the first few chapters. Maybe the Egg won't hatch until the Great Calamity starts, and that's when Impa whips it out to fight Ganon. That brings us to other potential fighters. Since this is a prequel, I'm not expecting a large roster like in Hyrule Warriors, but I think there is potential for a couple more. Impa, a Zelda staple, could act as a Sheik-like fighter. Puda could use technology to fight, somehow. Same with Robbie, since they're both alive. King Rome would be funny, but also tragic when he eventually dies. The problem is, we only know of a handful of characters who were alive back then, and since this is a prequel, it's hard to bring in typical original characters like Lana and Linkle into the fray without messing up the narrative of the original game. Although that didn't stop them from birthing the Egg. Such a precious egg. I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't expect a large cast. Keep your expectations in check when it comes to the characters. Age of Calamity is not about the fan service per se, but more about the narrative. And now it's time for those pesky little details that I was too lazy to put into their own section. And just like Korok seeds, they were a pain to find. Look at all those enemies! We have Bokoblins of all colors, Moblins, Lizalfos of all colors, Choo-Choos, Wizrobe, Hinox, Lionel,
Spooky, scary skeletons.
my Yiga clan, flying drones, and of course, robotic Octoroks. And I'm sure we'll get other bosses like Stone Talus and Molduga. But what kind of weapons do they have? Since weapon variety was a key element in Breath of the Wild, it makes sense we'll see a variety of enemy weapons. Vocal clubs, mobbing club. The Lizalfos here aren't holding weapons, so maybe they'll attack with their tongue or water. Lionel's sword and shield, maybe Stalfo's arms, wing cleaver, vicious sickle, spiked Boko club, thunder spear or blade, Lizal boomerang, ice rod, enhanced Lizal spear, regular Lizal spear, and Boko spear. Whew. Of course, I'm sure there are more weapons out there, but these are all the ones I could find. Interestingly, this Moblin here swings his club around, not only hitting the Hyrulean soldiers, but also the Bokoblins around him. That's a neat little detail that they grabbed from the original game. After the Moblin kills his own allies, he does this crazy roar when Link comes up to him. What does this roar do? I'm not sure. It could just be for show, or maybe it has some sort of effect on Link. Moving on, the landscape shots at Hyrule Castle are gorgeous. It's beautiful, but also tragic to see it in its former glory. Same with Castletown, of which we get a pretty good view from this shot. I would love to explore there and meet all the people, but this is the wrong kind of game. The start of the Age of Calamity trailer shows a cutscene similar to ones we've seen in the main game. The way the shadows dissolve before revealing Hyrule Castle makes me wonder if this particular scene is actually in the game, maybe as an opening cinematic. Of course, it could just be something fancy for the trailer, but I'm willing to bet we'll see this in-game. This is such a minor thing, but I totally forgot to mention it. The icon for enemy keeps on the UI map is actually a red version of the shrine icon from Breath of the Wild. I'm sure once you take the keep, the red icon would turn to the normal blue. Going back to the box art, In the corner, we see flying guardians swarm Va Naboris. I know what I'm about to say is kind of a stretch, but hear me out. Seeing this and Va Rudania moving in the trailer makes me wonder if the Divine Beasts will play more of a role in the story. Perhaps the final map for each Guardian will be inside each Divine Beast, and then the final boss is Blight Ganon. Or, what if you could control the Divine Beast to take down Ganon's fortress? Kind of like a giant kaiju battle, but that's probably not possible. Fun to imagine though. Lastly, this epic shot with all the champions. I honestly have no idea where this is at. Could be near Death Mountain because of all the red sparks, or they're standing somewhat near Calamity Ganon before going their separate ways. Whatever the case may be, at least they got to make a cool pose before they die. Spoilers! Where have you been? Being a huge Zelda fan, naturally I'm excited to revisit the world of Breath of the Wild, even if it is through the lens of a different game. It's similar to how I felt with the original Hyrule Warriors. I'm more excited for the lore and characters than I am for the actual gameplay. Although to be fair, I do enjoy Musou Warrior style of gameplay for the most part. Now, that's not to say Zelda fans must like this game or else. If Warrior gameplay is not your style, then don't bother playing it. But if you're willing to try something new about Breath of the Wild and live the story that happened 100 years ago, Age of Calamity is there for you. Personally, I can't wait to see the story and potential surprises Nintendo and Koei Tecmo have in store. Just don't get attached to anybody aside from Zelda and Link. For all we know, even the egg isn't safe. The baby? Thank you so much for watching! Are you excited for Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity? Is there anything you think I missed? Or theories I got horribly wrong? Please let me know in the comments below. If you liked what you saw, then be sure to subscribe for more Zelda and Nintendo goodness. Three Houses Waifu Battle Royale will return next with Byleth vs. Happy, so please look forward to that. Goodbye, you good people.